Hello again, Star Wars unboxing fans. Welcome to another episode of Darth Tuba Star Wars Unboxing Show. I'm your host, Darth Tuba, and this is a few days after the great Northeast floods that have taken place, and I'm in the process of kind of restoring the collection room back to its ordinary, normal location. We've basically, for the last 3 or 4 days, have just been running dehumidifiers and airing out the space, and I just kind of wanted to document as we slowly start to put it back together. Before I do that, though, I do want to take a moment to just to say, give a shout out and ask everyone to keep in their thoughts and minds and prayers the people that fared far worse than I did. There was, I lost 3 or 4 items from my collection, and I didn't even lose them. I just unboxed them. And but there are people that lost their whole homes, their cars, everything they owned, and because it wasn't just flooding, it was massive flooding. And it wasn't just massive flooding, there were tornadoes in the area. And it wasn't just tornadoes, there were house explosions relating to the flooding. So it's just important to, keep this in perspective. But if you want to help, is always to check out GoFundMe pages, check out your local charitable organizations. I'm sure they're going to be running like fund drives to kind of help support your neighbors and friends and family who are in dire need of assistance at this time. But this is just about kind of getting the collection space back to normal. So let me take you around and show you what I've been doing. Okay, so as you can see, we have taken years ago. By the way, this collection was mostly prepped for flooding because I had a flood about 10 years ago, almost to the day 10 years ago. So 10 years ago we had put an epoxy floor down. This is when we first moved in, which is very helpful. And before that, and then after that, we put some 16 by 16 carpet tiles. Now these, of course, are not carpet tiles, but we put carpet tiles down. And of course, that made the place look a little more homey. But then a flood happened and those all got tossed out. Okay, so we also had a pergo floor in the other room, and we had to throw that out as well. So instead, we found these kind of tiles that are just foam, and they were essentially like $1 a piece. We got them a 5-pack at Five Below, so I just kept going to Five Below and getting more and more until eventually I had enough to basically play down on the entire floor. But when, of course, the flooding came in, there were some, they started to float away, of course. So I just took them all outside. There are a few. Like I have my little video game console here that are stuck underneath. But what I did was I actually had these lifted up and I just had them held up by items just to kind of get it all as much airing out as possible. So there's only a minimal amount of moisture still underneath that will dry out naturally with the dehumidifiers. So now comes the task of having to put all these back down. Now, for the most part, it's not a problem because these are just regular tiles, and we can just kind of lay them down and align them. But there are some that were cut specifically. Like you can see here, these were cut a certain way to fit into the space. Well, they're all over the place because I had to dry them. So I'm going to have to be clever and creative in how we do that. I want to point these out. You'll see, if you ever watch my channel, my backdrop is made up of a bunch of boxes. No, these are not vintage toys. They're not vintage in the sense that they're vintage, some of them, but they're my old toys from when I was a kid, and I kept the boxes, and I just kind of unfolded them. I had them kind of flattened, and I just held on to them. And you can see they're not really in very great shape, so they're not of any serious value, but I was able to take them up and use them as my backdrop. But the bottom level did get, these were all stacked up high, so they were all fine. They didn't have any damage. These, sadly, were on the bottom, so there was some water. You can tell by the buckling. This is actually the Gentle Giant Dianoga figure, but as you can see, it's a little buckling. But I don't really care because, as I said, this really wasn't something that was of a monetary value. It was just something I thought would make a cool backdrop. So going through here, you can see this whole area is now dry, and there's all the tiles. We have laundry going too. There's all the tiles kind of stacked up, waiting to become used. There's my table with. had a few items that were on top of the table. I'm actually going to kind of do a little bit of a reset here and try to straighten this area up a little. Oop, little Grief Karga did not survive. He fell over. Okay, we have a dehumidifier in here. And of course, this space is dark. Let me get the light on. It'll be a little hard to hear me. I apologize. I have a fan going. And again, these tiles were already lifted. And then they were... I was going to take a look here and see. Yeah, they're sitting there. There is a little bit of moisture here. So what I'm going to do now that this is all dry, I'm going to actually remove... I'm going to move this space. Because this is really the only... These two tiles are the only two tiles in like the entire space that haven't been lifted. So I'm going to move this whole unit over. But I have to do a little bit of... I had to wait for everything else to dry. And then I'll lift these two tiles up and I'll let the fan dry them. And they'll be the last two tiles that we put down. So that will be good. Thankfully, this room did not see as much water damage. As you can see, here's an example of what I mean. This is stuff, the stuff's going underneath, so see, perfectly dry now. So all these I'll just lay back down, and we'll be in good shape. Vader survived. Thankfully, his boots, again, he's got these rubber platform boots, and the platform boots are so tall that the cape did not even get any water. In this part of the house, there was only about an inch of water, so we were fortunate, which meant that none of the items on the bottom level got damaged. So that was good. Okay, now the only section that's questionable is this room. All right, this room is got these tiles that are just pasted, and they're adhesive right to the cement. There is no fabric in between. There's no cushion. There's no anything. It's just plastic on cement. So I'm going to try to keep them here and hopefully not have to rip them up. If I do. I'll just take them, move things from one side, rip them all up, move things from the other side, and then maybe I'll just replace them with more padding like that. I did find a cushiony kind of thing online that looks, it's got the cushiony feel, but it looks like this. It actually looks like 4 of these little tiles together. So I may decide to replace them, but for now, I'm gonna leave them alone. We had one little piece of molding here that's a little buckled, but other than that, then we're back into this room. All right, so again, I'm very grateful. There's been a lot of people that I know, even I'm on some Facebook collector groups that looks like it's damaged, but it's just my throw all place. I have a couple of things I just throw in there. It was not damaged by the flood. But I will say that I've been very fortunate. There have been others that have lost their entire collection. But I cannot stress to you enough, if you are going to be a collector, see, the thing about this house, it has a built-in safety. And I'll show you that right now. And I mentioned this in the last episode. This door, as you can see, goes to the outside. Now it does go up these stairs, so one might think that it's going to get, that the water is going to just stack up here and then we'd be in trouble. But right there is a drain. And that drain is a big tube. Okay, and that drain basically takes you out past my driveway, and right over there's a hill, and it actually dumps out. In fact, you know what? I'll even show you. It dumps out. So we have a lot of space here, which allows us to get water away from the house. So for that, and you can see, look, right here, you can see where it dumped out. There's your hose, or your tube, your exit, and it can actually, and the water actually cleaned it out. So it was a good setup. So we're very fortunate with that. But if you're a person that has a basement that is a full pit that doesn't have an exit route for water, then I cannot stress to you enough that you need to make an investment You need to make an investment in a sump pump, a French drain system, something where there is a natural way for water to exit the house. Okay, so, and another thing I have inside that door is three just pumps with hoses ready to go. There's a drain right here, okay? It goes about 8 feet down, or 8 inches below this. I just lift this off and I can put the pump in there, and it just will always, it's the first place water comes in. So that's where you can pump it right out. I just run a hose pretty much right into that drain. And even with 11 inches of water, we were able to get the water out of the house. And in worst case scenario, all you really got to do is open this door. Because if you open this door, the water can only go up an inch or two before it goes out. So it would never go more than that. All right, but now comes the problem. I want to point one thing out. One casualty I didn't show. This is one of those, I think it's a Target exclusive, little cardboard cutout playset. Well, there was another one that was basically this is Kessel. There was another one that was a train. It was the train on, I forget which planet it was in Solo. Yeah, that one did not survive. That was, unfortunately, I don't know why. I think it just, put it off. But it was essentially sitting in that bottom shelf where these figures are, and it floated away. Saved the figures. So there you go. There was also a blueprint book underneath this, which I was able to save at the last second right before the water came up. So that was good. So now comes the point of putting this elaborate puzzle back together. Okay, so we have made excellent progress. Most of the floor is down. I've was able to utilize just the complete pieces to get them all back. Now, of course, they may not all be in the same location as they originally were, but that's okay. Now, one thing I will point out when doing this, you got to be careful of, is this little thing right here. There's a tiny bit of buckling. Ordinarily, the buckling usually resolves itself once you put all the pieces together, but I want to point one other one here. I may have to do a bit of a reset on this couch because the weight of the couch is prohibiting this from going in. If I try to connect those, I get this huge buckle and coming in from this room, that's a tripping hazard. So I will either reset the couch, use the weight of the couch to pull it back, or maybe even just cut some of the links off and just connect it over here. So we'll see. Now, I do want to point out the next part of this challenge is what we see right here, and what you see over here, and here, and here, and here, and there, and there, and I can keep going, but you got the idea. These are all of the cut pieces. So now we have a rather elaborate puzzle. Okay, so rather than high-speed film this, I think you can just understand it's basically going to be a trial and error thing, and it could take me most of the day. So I will just kind of fast forward to when we're done. But before we do that, I want to point out one thing. I went to Walmart the other day to pick up these little Stairlight little mini crates. These are excellent at keeping things off the ground. In fact, they hold up a decent amount of weight. I even used 2 of them to keep this whole shelf off the ground. And of all my shelves, this is the one, and since it had plush in it, I was glad that it did not get submerged in water. These, $1.47 at Walmart. So, of course, I picked up the only 3 they had, but if you keep looking and searching and maybe look online, you could probably find them. Okay, so let's finish this up. And we are pretty much back to normal. Most of our padding, our flooring is returned. I do have an old pillow I have to throw out because I got wet, but other than that, one thing I will say, there were a few other things that we discovered in doing all this. All my little plastic, I had a new case of plastic clamshells to put loose figures in, and I realized that it got water in it. I did not know this right away, so I got them all out and have fans blowing on them. But overall, pretty good stuff. Still got to straighten up my table here, but pretty much back to normal. Okay, things are looking good. So that will do it, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed this little walkthrough collection and what to do.